Hello and namaste everybody. My name is Richa. Welcome to my channel, Learning Craft. So today I'll be discussing the basic strokes of brush calligraphy. So I'm starting off with the first stroke, which is an upstroke. Okay, so upstroke is a thin stroke which is made in the upward direction. So very gently start from the bottom and go in the upward direction. While making the upstrokes or the thin strokes, you need to make sure that you're applying minimum or no amount of pressure onto your pen, and be very slow in the beginning. You can reduce your speed up to this level as well. Okay. Avoid making your upstrokes in this manner, like this. Okay. The direction or the movement of the upstroke should be slow and steady throughout. So very slowly move in the upward direction. And while making the upstrokes, you just need to use the tip part of your pen. So coming to our second stroke, which is a downstroke. So downstrokes are full pressure thick strokes. So I'll be starting from the top and I'll move in the downward direction, applying full pressure onto the pen. So the moment you apply pressure to your pen, it will produce a thick stroke. Again, the movement of your downstroke should be slow and it should be a steady movement throughout. Do not lift the pressure of your pen in between. Do not make your strokes like this. Okay, make it a full pressure downward stroke. In the beginning, you need to make your strokes as slowly as you can. So just like this, you'll be able to make downward strokes. So remember, the thin strokes are the upward direction strokes, which is made using minimum pressure onto the pen, and the downstrokes are the thick strokes, which are made using full pressure onto the pen. Now coming to the next basic stroke, which is an overturn. Now in the overturn, I'll be making use of these upstrokes and downstrokes, and I'll add a little transition to them. So I'll first write what an overturn is. Okay, I'll write it in a bigger height as well so that you can have a better idea. Okay, so in the overturn, as you can see, I have combined the upstroke and the downstroke together, and this little part at the top is known as the transition. Okay, we slowly start with an upstroke. Now you can also make the overturn in the beginning by lifting your pen here and then adding pressure to the pen. And once you're comfortable with the transitions, you can do it in the single go as well. Okay, so experiment with different heights. Practice this multiple times so that you can build up the muscle memory. So this will be the overturn. Now similar to the overturn, I have the underturn stroke. So underturn is just the opposite of overturn. For the underturn stroke, I'll be starting with a thick stroke and then I'll transition that into a thin upward stroke. Okay, I'm drawing this in a smaller height as well. So start with a full pressure stroke, and at the bottom start reducing pressure onto the pen and completely change it into a thin upward stroke. So again, you need to practice this multiple times. So basic strokes are the key to your letter forms. Once you're comfortable writing the basic strokes, writing letter forms will be much easier for you. So I'll complete this entire line for underturn. Now moving on to the compound curve. So compound curve is the combination of overturn and underturn. I'll first write these two strokes again and then I'll show you how to combine them to form a compound curve. So I have the overturn and I have the underturn. Now I'll combine them together to make a compound curve. Okay, I'll write it in a larger height as well. Okay, so this will be a compound curve. Now in the compound curve, two transitions are happening simultaneously, which is the thin to thick and the thick to thin transition. Okay, so again you need to practice this multiple times. Initially you need to reduce your speed while making the basic strokes. You can also lift your pen before the transition if you want to gain much more control over your pen. Lift your pen, do the transition, again lift your pen and make a thin upward stroke. So just like that you can make the compound curve stroke. Coming to our next basic stroke, which is an ascender loop. So for the ascender loop, I'll be first starting with an upstroke and transition that into a thick downward stroke. I'll write it one more time. Start with a thin upstroke, transition into a thick downward stroke. Thin upstroke, transition that into a thick downward stroke. So in the ascender loop, we are witnessing the thin to thick transition, quite similar to what we did in the overturn stroke. Okay, so make sure while you're making the ascender loop, you're always starting with an upstroke first. So very common mistake which every beginner does while making the ascender loop. They tend to start from the bottom like this and then complete your stroke. So this direction, this starting with the thick stroke is wrong. You need to always start with an upward stroke and then come in the downward direction making a thick stroke. So I'll complete this entire line for ascender loop. And you can make use of the slant lines to make your strokes consistent throughout. Okay, coming to our seventh basic stroke, which is the descender loop. Now for the descender loop, I'll be starting with a thick stroke first and then I'll transition that into a thin upward stroke. So observe very carefully. I'm starting with a thick stroke very slowly and I'll transition that into a thin stroke. Again, starting with a thick stroke and transitioning this into a thin stroke. Thick stroke and thin stroke. So you're first start moving in the downward direction and at the bottom you're making a transition and coming up making a thin stroke. Okay, so it's quite simple. similar to the underturn stroke. The transition movement is similar to the underturn. So I'll be completing this entire line. Now coming to a last basic stroke, which is an oval. Okay, so I'll draw the oval in two different heights. So ovals are slightly trickier as compared to the other strokes. You need to practice ovals a lot, then only you'll be able to master the stroke. So please don't get disheartened if you're not able to make it in a single go. It will take some time. So for the ovals, I'm starting with a thin stroke. I'm transitioning at the top into a thick downward stroke, transitioning at the bottom into a thin stroke again. So that will be the oval stroke. Now I'll complete this entire line. I'll also show you how to use these strokes to make the lowercase letters. I'll be writing letter A now. For letter A, I make use of three basic strokes, which is an upstroke, an oval, okay, and the last stroke is an underturn. When I combine these three strokes, I get letter A. Okay, similarly, you can try out other letters. I'll write one more letter for you. Okay, let's write letter D. So D is also similar to letter A. For letter D, I'll just be using a bigger form of undertone. Okay, so that was about the basic strokes which are used in brush calligraphy. I hope you guys have liked the video. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and share it with your friends. And let me know in the comments what other topics would you like me to cover related to calligraphy. Bye.